Hello again, my little mathematicians. Today we're going to be getting some practice with dividing decimals. Now there's several things to our homework that I want us to pay attention to. For this section, you're going to round to the tenths place. That's one number after the decimal. For this section, you're going to add or round it to the nearest hundredths place. That's two numbers after the decimal. For this section, you're going to round it to the nearest thousandths place. That's three numbers after the decimal. When you're rounding, you always go one decimal place further than what you're asked to round to because you need to look at the number behind it. If the number behind it is 4 or below, the number stays the same. If the number behind the one you're focusing on is 5 or above, then it tells that number to go up by 1. Okay. I'm going to do several of these with you. Now, of course, we have to show our work for the long division. And if you write very, very tiny, you can show these and these on the paper, but all the rest need to be shown on a separate sheet of paper. Okay, so like for sure, this, and all of these would need to be shown on a separate sheet of paper. If you write teeny tiny microscopic, then, but still legible, then fine, you can show these three and these three directly on the paper if you want. Okay. Let's go ahead and take a look at number 1. For number 1, you're trying to divide 8 into 29.85. Before I forget, I bring that decimal right up there in my answer. Okay, and then can 8 go into 2? No. But 8 can go into 29 how many times? 3 times. Because 8 times 3 is 24. When you subtract 29 minus 24 is 5. Always double check that this remainder is smaller than what you are dividing by. If this is bigger, like this was 9 or 10 or 11, which is bigger than 8, then I would need to erase this and get a bigger number than 3. But since we're good, I can bring my next number down. So I'm going to bring the 8 down. 8 goes into 58 how many times? 7 times, because 8 times 7 is 56. When you subtract that, you get 2. Bring down your next number, which is a 5. 8 goes into 25 how many times? 3 times, because 8 times 3 is 24. When I subtract that, I get 1. And then I would bring down a 0, and 8 goes into 10, and I would keep going, right? Like technically I could say it goes in once, but I don't need to because I'm rounding to the 10th, so I only need to go one decimal place further than that. Otherwise, I might be here all day. Who knows? So this is 3.73 as of right now. Yeah, it keeps going, but this is where we're going to stop because I'm only going to round it to the tenths place. So this 3 tells this 7 to stay a 7 or go up to an 8. It tells it to stay a 7. Because if the number behind the one you're focusing on is 4 or below, this stays. There's no such thing as going down. It only stays the same, or it goes up. If this number behind it was 5 or above, then this would go up to an 8. Okay, so there we go. We did the first one. And again, please pay attention where it tells you to round because some of these go on and on and on forever. Okay, let's take a look at number 9. Now again, this is one of the ones that we need to show on a separate sheet of paper. So always, please title your worksheet. This is B-57 that we're working on. Number your problems. We're going to do number 9. Okay, and then go in order after that. Nice and neat and tidy. We don't want a scavenger hunt. Whatever comes first goes inside the house. 3,000, or nope, actually that's 3.875, and it's being divided by 8. Bring up that decimal before I forget about it. Can 8 go into 3? No. But 8 can go into 38 how many times? What do you think? Hopefully you said 4 times because 8 times 4 is 32. 38 minus 32 is 6. Again, always double check. Is that smaller than this one? Bring down your next number, which is a 7. How many times does 8 go into 67? Don't wait for me. Try to figure it out. What do you think? How many times does 8 go into 67? It goes in 8 times because 8 times 8 is 64. When you subtract that, you get 3. Bring down your next number, which is a 5. And 8 goes into 35 how many times? What do you think? 4. Because 8 times 4 is 32. When you subtract that, you get 3. And then technically, you could bring down another 0 and keep going. But in this section, for number 9, it said round to the nearest hundredth, which is 2 numbers after the decimal. So I only need to go 1 number further than that. So 0.484, this is the one I want to focus on. So that 4 tells this 8 to stay in 8. So it's 0.48. Okay, that was number 9. Let's try from the bottom section. I know that you guys are only doing odds, but I'm feeling like I'm doing all the odds for you. So let's try number 12, one of the evens. It says 31 divided by 6. 6 cannot go into 3. But 6 goes into 31 how many times? 5 times. Because 6 times 5 is 30. When you subtract that, you get 1. And you're like, wait a minute, what happened? There's nothing else left. So add a decimal and a 0, and now I can keep going. Bring that 0 down. Now 6 goes into 10 how many times? Once, because 6 times 1 is 6. When you subtract that, you get 4. That's less than that, so I can keep going. Bring down a 0. 6 goes into 40 how many times? Well, 6 times 7 is 42, which is too big, so 6 times 6, which is 36. Subtract that, and you get 4. Bring down a 0. And 6 goes into 40 how many times? 6, because 6 times 6 is 36. When you subtract that, you get 4, right? And then you'd bring down a 0. And are you noticing a pattern continuing here? Hopefully you are. This is just going to keep going on and on and on, right? It's going to be a 6 again and again and again and again till the end of time. And really, I only needed to stop how many places? Well, for problem 12, this is in the section of rounding it to the nearest thousandths. So 3 numbers after the decimal. So 1, 2, 3 numbers after the decimal. I only needed to go 1 number further than that. So you have 5.16. And then does this 6 stay a 6 or go up to a 7? Well, that 6 tells this 6 to go up. So now it's a 7. So my final answer is 5.167. And that one involved a lot of different things. And that's now why you know why I picked that one. Okay. So you guys continue to do the rest. And don't forget, always show your work on a separate sheet of paper, but you also don't need to keep going and going and going because some of these never end. Pay attention. You're rounding to the nearest tenth for this section, the nearest hundredth for this section, and the nearest thousandths for this section. How you fill out the riddle? Well, for 1, I got 3.7, so I'm going to cross that off. And for 9, we said we got 0.48. So find 0.48 on there. And for number 12, we got 5.167. So go ahead and find that one. 5.167 is right here. Cross that off. And then at the very, very end, once everything's crossed off, the answer will be what's remaining. Congratulations, my little mathematicians. Once you master this, man, oh man, you should be very, very proud.